Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing another murder minute video. So I'm going to start off with a trigger warning. This video contains the murders of a pregnant woman and 2 small children. So if those things are going to be triggering for you, I suggest you go ahead and click off this video and tune into some of my more milder content located on other areas of my channel. With that said, stay tuned and find out the story behind the Watts family murders. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So, I'm going to go ahead and start off this murder minute video with this. This story actually angers me greatly for many reasons, but underlying is just the reason behind the senseless murder of this family. If you feel the need to cheat, or you feel that you no longer love your spouse, then there's divorce. There is separation. Murder is never the answer. So with that said, be prepared for me to get mad. Be prepared for me to be a little bit more excited in this video than I am in some of my other videos. So with all that said, we're going to be covering the Watts family murders. This was off of the app Murder Minute. I have it on my Android. I'm not sure if it's available on Apple. It is a free app. This story was contributed by Robert Walker, and we're going to get into it. So, the Watts family appeared to be an all-American family. You have the father, who was Christopher Watts, and Shanann Watts, the mom. They met on Facebook. Both grew up in North Carolina and seemed to have a wonderful marriage. Two years after they initially met and became a couple, they got married. Shanann's parents adored him and thought they were a perfect match. Shanann's mom, Sandra not even going to try to butcher her name, it's really difficult to say, was even quoted as saying he did everything he could for her to make her happy and comfortable. Shanann suffered from lupus and was often uncomfortable despite this illness. She was also described as being a hard worker. I'm going to insert a slide kind of giving some descriptions of lupus just in case you're not aware of what lupus is. Now, with that said, Shanann was an independent representative for an MLM company called Lavelle that sold a product called Thrive. If you want to know more about that, there are tons and tons of YouTubers out there that do anti-MLM videos. Some of the more prominent ones that I like to watch are the Illuminati. She is great. She does MLM Mondays. There's Savannah Marie. She does a lot of anti-MLM content, but there are tons and tons and tons of anti-MLMs. You can go and find out about all these different MLM companies, so I'm not going to get into that. Chris worked for Andarco Petroleum, which was a large oil company, as an operator. A year after they got married, the couple moved from North Carolina to a small town in northern Colorado called Frederick. They place a down payment on a 5-bedroom, 4-bath house in a local suburb. This is their home. Soon after moving in, they had their first child, a girl they named Bella Marie Watts. Nearly 2 years later, in July of 2015, they welcomed their second daughter, Celeste Watts, who they nicknamed Cece. Here is Bella and Cece. Now, in June of 2018, Shanann is pregnant for the 3rd time, and this time with a son. Chris had longed for a son, so all seemed well with the family. Shanann was due in January of 2019, and the couple planned to name him Nico Lee Watts. Shanann was always documenting the family's life on social media through Facebook and Instagram, and from outward appearances, the family was so happy. August of 2018 ended the happy family forever. So, August 9th of 2018. Shanann had a business trip that required her to travel to Scottsdale, Arizona. August 13th, 2018, at around 1:45 a.m., Shanann returned home and she'd got a ride from a coworker. The family's doorbell camera caught her being dropped off at home. And that was the last time that Shanann Watts was ever seen again. August 13th, 2018, approximately 1:40 p.m., Chris was at work, and Frederick PD officer Scott Conrad, or Coonrad, however he says his name, was dispatched to the home for a welfare check. Nicole Atkinson was concerned about Shanann because she was not answering her text or her calls since she was dropped off almost 12 hours prior. So here is a photograph from the police cam of Nicole Atkinson with her son at the Watts home. Nicole was advising the officer that this was totally out of character for Shanann. Also, Shanann had missed an OBGYN appointment and also a work meeting. Also, all things that were outside of Shanann's character. Nicole told the officer that she came to the home around 12:10, knocked, rang the doorbell, and still got no response. Officer Coonrad walked the perimeter of the home and saw nothing suspicious or out of place. However, he did notice that Shanann's car was at the home. Chris came home soon after Coonrad had contacted him, and the officer noticed that he seemed to act a bit off when he was advised that his wife and children were missing. One thing, he greeted the officer and then entered the garage after telling him that he would let them into the home. Chris then spent some time in the home before he opened the door to let the officer and Nicole into the home. Nicole was rattled by how calm Chris was, and Chris gave the officer permission to search the house, which was found to be unoccupied. The officer noticed that Chris was detached and busy on his phone the entire time of the search. Now, this is a man whose pregnant wife and 2 small children are missing. He just gets a call from a police officer informing him that his pregnant wife and 2 small children are missing. He comes home. He doesn't immediately let the officer in. He kind of does something in the home. Then he lets the officer in. The entire time the officer is searching this 5-bedroom, 4-bath house to make sure that they're not in the home somewhere, he's on his phone. Shanann's friend is even noticing that he's very calm. He's very just kind of not worried. He's not antsy. He's not anything. They discover that Shanann's shoes, purse, phone, wedding ring, and keys were still in the home along with the kids' car seats. Coonrad asked Chris when was the last time he had saw Shanann, and Chris advised him that it was earlier on the 13th at approximately 5 a.m. when he was getting ready for work. He stated she had mentioned something about going to a friend's with the kids in the afternoon. When it was obvious that they were not in the home, Coonrad called for backup for a search. A Detective Boomhover, who was one part of the search party, noticed that the top sheet of the bed was missing in the bedroom. A neighbor to the Watts, a Nathan Trinstich, again, apologies on name pronunciation, not my strong point, told the detectives he had a home surveillance system that caught part of the Watts driveway. It showed Shanann being dropped off and it also showed at 5 a.m. Chris backing his truck up the driveway, then a little while later leaving in the direction of his job. Chris explained that he had had tools stolen in the past, so he was backing his truck up to the garage so that he could load his tools up for the week. However, Nathan, the neighbor, and Nicole, Shanann's friend, both stated that they had never seen Chris back his truck up the driveway like that before. While at Nathan's, everyone noticed that Chris seemed to be scared as they were reviewing the footage from the surveillance camera. Later that evening, the police officially declared Shanann and the kids missing and put out bolos for them. This is the official flyer that the police put out in reference to Shanann and the children. The next day, on August the 14th, the Colorado Bureau of Investigations and the FBI joined in the investigation. Cadaver dogs were brought to the Watts home. They turned up nothing. Also, forensic technicians searched the home for any sign of a struggle, cover-up. Some things were taken from the home, but ultimately nothing was discovered. Also at this time, media was converging, and Chris gave an interview to the media pleading for the return of his family, but a lot of people thought he seemed very emotionless. Police began to believe that Shanann and the children were not victims of a random kidnapping or other outside crime. the investigation began to focus on Chris. So within 2 days of the disappearance, Chris was the focus of the police investigation. Police were doubting his claims of seeing Shanann at 5 a.m. on August 13th of 2018, for starters. So by the end of August 14th of 2018, due to the lack of evidence and Chris's lack of care in the disappearance of his family, the FBI brought Chris in for a preliminary questioning. So this is actual surveillance picture from the investigation where they brought Chris in for questioning. Chris stuck to his story, but added that he thought one of Shanann's many friends may have picked her up without telling anyone. There was nothing to corroborate this, so investigators continued their pressure of Chris. This time, they asked about what they talked about with Chris. This time, investigators were asking Chris what he had talked about with Shanann the last time he had seen Shanann. Chris then admitted that they had had a bit of a heated argument about marital issues. Now, we are starting to see that there were cracks in the marriage that everybody thought was so perfect. To everyone else, the couple seemed perfect, but police started to find the cracks in the facade, and during the investigation, the FBI agents asked to search Chris's phone, and he allowed them access. So the FBI cloned Chris's phone so that they had all the stuff that was on his phone while he still had his phone. Before searching the phone, Chris had been asked if he was cheating on Shanann, and he vehemently denied it. Chris was released and asked to return on August the 15th of 2018, and they were going to perform a polygraph test. After Chris left on the 14th, investigators worked on the copy of the data that they had gotten from Chris's phone. And this is when they did uncover that Chris was in fact cheating on Shanann. The person he was cheating with was a co-worker by the name of Nicole Kissinger. Chris and Nicole first met at work when he had taken a malfunctioning gas meter to her to be repaired. Chris had entered Nicole's information into his phone on June 14th of 2018, approximately 1 month before the disappearances. Deleted text showed that the relationship was growing between the two, and on July 4th of 2018, Shanann and the kids were on vacation in North Carolina. Messages showed that Kissinger had come to the Watts home to hang out. On July 7th of 2018 marks the first phone call conversation between Kissinger and Chris. Investigators also found texts between Shanann and Chris discussing their relationship, such as this one from July 10th of 2018. Now, in this text, from Shanann to Chris, she asks, "You okay? It's like you don't want to talk. I kept trying to talk and I had to dig it out of you." Later the same week, Chris took Kissinger on their first date to the local car museum. During this date, Shanann had attempted to call Chris 4 times, and Chris ignored each one of her calls. Around July 18th of 2018, Chris installed a secret calculator app on his phone. This app is for like hiding things in your phone. It looks like a calculator on the outside, but it's actually, and it functions as a calculator, but it's to like hide pictures and things. And he installed this for the express purpose of hiding explicit pictures that Kissinger was sending to him, such as this. On July 28th of 2018, GPS and texts show that Chris and Kissinger went to the Great Sand Dunes National Park and spent the night together. Now, here are where things start to really just grind on my nerves. The following 2 weeks worth of text between Shanann and Chris show the decline of the relationship and argument. These even include an argument about Chris's parents who did not get along with Shanann. Now, this is just a level of ridiculousness where it's just like every nitty gritty little detail you're trying to start an argument with. But this is Shanann kind of replying to, you can see where she's kind of replying to stuff that he's said to her. So if you want to read these in full, just pause. It's going to be 2 slides of text from Shanann to something that Chris must have said or text her. Investigators confronted Kissinger. They also seized her phone to investigate the disappearances. The only thing that they learned was that she was completely infatuated with Chris and was even searching for wedding dresses as of August the 14th. Investigators learned that Kissinger and Chris had exchanged romantic cards such as this. Now, on August 7th of 2018, Shanann had confided in a friend that she had confronted Chris about his distant behavior, which again, reminder, she is pregnant with their 3rd child, and he is not only cheating on her, but he is also being distant from her while she is pregnant with their 3rd child. So she confronts him, she confides in a friend what he says in their conversation. So pause and read that conversation for the next 2 slides. Now we're up to the day before the disappearance. August the 12th, 2018. Shanann has drafted a speech she has planned to give to Chris. This is one day before she is coming home, and this is the day before no one ever sees her alive again. August the 15th of 2018. The FBI had a timeline of Chris's infidelity from his phone, so they summoned him back for another interview. During this interrogation, Chris took a polygraph that he failed. The FBI continued the interview and demanded the truth. Chris started to show signs of breaking and asked to speak to his father one-on-one. Chris confided to his father that he had killed Shanann. This is a picture of Chris and his father alone in the interrogation room. Chris stated that when she had returned home from her business trip, they had had an argument. Chris stated that she stormed off, and when he had caught up to her, she, being Shanann, was strangling Bella and Cece to death. Chris stated that in a fit of rage, he strangled Shanann to death with his bare hands and hid all three bodies out of fear. Investigators came back to the room. They persuaded Chris to tell them where the bodies were. And Chris broke down and stated that they were buried at his work site here. The FBI arrested Chris that night. The FBI did not believe his version of the murders, but they at least had moved the disappearance from a disappearance to a murder investigation. So here's Chris's mugshot. On August the 15th of 2018, Chris was booked on the murder of Shanann and the concealment of Bella and Cece's bodies, since all they had at this point was his confession. And he was booked into the Weld County Jail in Greeley, Colorado. On August the 16th of 2018, the FBI met with Chris to gain the location of the bodies. He said it was his work site, which is a rural and barren oil field. Investigators and Chris's co-workers had searched it earlier in the disappearance stage of the investigation, but found nothing out of the ordinary. However, now they had new information and were able to quickly locate the already decomposing bodies. Over the next few days, investigators continued to press Chris about what really happened, and Chris eventually broke for the second time and admitted to not only killing Shanann, but also both of his daughters. On August the 21st of 2018, Chris was officially arraigned on 3 counts of murder. Chris was charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder, Shanann, Bella, Cece, and 2 counts of death of a child who had not yet attained 12 years of age, and the defendant was in a position of trust. So, murdering Shanann, murdering Bella, murdering Cece, and because Cece and Bella were both under the age of 12, and he was in a position to be they were in his trust and care and welfare, that's an additional 2 charges. Chris was also charged with an unlawful termination of a pregnancy and 3 counts of tampering with a dead body. Chris answered his charges with a detailed story of what happened that night, with even more horrific details than his original story. And this is where it really gets aggravating. What happened on August 13th of 2018? Chris stated that Shanann returned home from her business trip and they had sex. Both fell asleep. When Chris got up to get ready for work, he stated that Shanann woke up and they started arguing. Shanann stated that she knew there was someone else and started crying. Chris denied the affair but told Shanann that he did not think the marriage would work. Chris told Shanann he no longer loved her, and Shanann stated she would take the kids, and Chris's answer was to straddle her in the bed and strangle her with his bare hands. Chris stated that Shanann never screamed or fought back. He stated he even thought that she was silently praying during the incident. Chris said that all of the commotion had awakened Bella, who had walked in and saw him on top of Shanann. Bella asked Chris, "What's wrong with Mommy?" Chris told Bella that she wasn't feeling well and proceeded to wrap her in the top sheet from the bed. As Chris dragged Shanann down the stairs, Bella started crying and asked what had happened to her mom. Now, your daughter sees you in the process of killing her mother. You then add insult to injury with said child, wrap mom's dead body into a sheet, and drag her dead body down the stairs in front of said child. Pro-parenting tips there, man. A+. Moving on. Chris put Shannon's body on the back floorboard of his truck and placed trash bags over her head and feet. He also put a gas can in the truck. Chris then backed his truck into the driveway and returned to the house. With all this, Cece had awakened. Chris put both girls in the truck, both holding a blanket and Cece holding a stuffed dog. He then proceeded to drive his 2 living children and his dead wife to his job, and the drive was 45 minutes. Bella had started to complain of a smell. Unfortunately, that was Shanann's bowels, which had released post-mortem. Once at the worksite, Chris drug Shanann's body from the truck and buried it. This caused the children some alarm. Chris then came back to the truck, taking the blue Yankees blanket from Cece and wrapped it around her and suffocated her while Bella sat next to them. Chris then carried Cece's body to one of the oil tanks and dropped it inside. Chris then returned to the truck again, and Bella looked up at him and said, "Is the same thing going to happen to me as Cece?" Chris put the blanket over her head and Bella cried, "Daddy, no." Bella fought for her life as Chris killed her. Chris even stated he could hear her grunt as she tried to breathe, and she twisted from side to side under the blanket. Autopsy results showed that Bella had bitten her tongue several times, severely in that struggle with her father as he killed her. Chris then stuffed Bella in the second oil tank before going off to work as if nothing had happened. Chris's co-workers even stated that he acted as if nothing was out of the ordinary that day. He had just killed his pregnant wife, his 2 children, with his bare hands and could go to work as if nothing happened. November 19th of 2018, Chris pled guilty to all the charges against him and was sentenced to life without parole. The court spared him death due to his full confession and him giving the details of where the bodies were. In addition to Chris's infidelity, the Watts family was having financial issues. They had several $1,000s worth of credit card debt, and they were also struggling to pay their mortgage. This is their bankruptcy filing. Chris also stated that he blamed Shanann for driving a wedge between him and his parents. And Chris resented Shanann for this idea that he had. In December of 2018, Chris was transferred to Dodge Correctional Facility in Wisconsin due to the threats from the other inmates that were in Colorado. And what do I have to say to that? Way to go, Colorado inmates. This is his Wisconsin inmate information. Chris will spend the rest of his life in prison. What has happened to Nicole Kissinger Well, she has gone completely silent. Nobody knows where she is. She actually just disappeared. Shanann's parents are obviously completely heartbroken over the situation. Not only did they lose their daughter, they also lost 2 of their grandchildren in very horrible circumstances. And Chris's parents, well, his mother at least, in the past year has been staunchly outspoken about how it's all Shanann's fault that Chris killed her and the children. And to that, I now understand why he is such a sociopath. Because if you can blame a woman who was pregnant for being murdered, and you can blame her after she's already dead for him killing his 2 living children, it does not surprise me in the least bit that your son could commit those crimes. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for this video. If you like this video, not the content, just the style, because nobody can like this content, give this video a thumbs up. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe, ring that bell, and let me know in the comments down below, what do you think about Chris Watts and his actions? What do you think about this case? And in the description box is my Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, my email. If you have any cases you want me to look into, any things that you want me to put out there, you can send it to me on any of those platforms. And I will see you on the next one. Bye for now, guys.